I thought about doing a prank of being like, there's nothing here. But I feel like that's probably been so overdone, and maybe that's the intro, is me just talking about what intro to do. In my hands is the Nothing 4A. Nothing's newest entry-level budget phone, whatever term you want to use. But this bad boy starts at a pretty affordable price, and as you'll find out, is a bit better than last year's. Well, which color should we do? Let's do, I think the blue. We're gonna do something fancy. Whoop. Welcome to nothing. What are you talking about? There's something right. Okay, we gotta open it up. On the top part here, whoop, hey, it comes with a little plastic case. That's kind of nice, as well as a USB-C cable, which appears to be, how long is this? Yeah, about 3 feet. Not the longest cables we've seen with phones, but at least they're still giving you a cable. The bare minimum nowadays. A bunch of propaganda, especially for the EU. And then finally, boop, the phone itself. Nice little paper wrapping. Oh, okay, picking the blue was the right choice. Oh, this is like a flexi case. I thought it was more of like a plastic, more brittle case. Kind of just fun to play with. Let's take an exterior tour of the phone first. So on our right side here, you've got your power button and your volume rocker. On the very bottom, you've got a USB-C 2.0 port, and you've got your SIM card tray there as well. And on the left side, they have one more button here, which they call the Essential button. I think by default, you can just tap it and it takes a screenshot, but we'll play with that a little bit later once we get the phone on. On the top, looks like you've just got your microphone / speaker. And other than that, the real shining part about the phone is the back, man. Woo! Look how pretty that is. One thing that was very controversial amongst people here, they changed how the light bars work on the back. If you remember from some previous Nothing phones, they kind of had more options that were like around the camera bump. Now it looks like it's these, how many squares is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sorry, it's the 7 squares along the side here, and that does the similar functions as the light bar before. It's kind of nice that they include just a clear rubber case, so at least you can still see which color you picked. Based on this type of material, it'll probably offer a tiny bit of drop protection. I wouldn't, yeet it though. And ugh, it kind of looks gross when you get it covered in fingerprints. Oh my gosh. And it looks like they've also pre-applied a screen protector. I see a little lip that I could peel from there. That's very nice to be included, especially on like an entry-level budget phone. As for the rest of the specs of the phone, it remains in line with some other budget phones. It starts at 128 gigabytes of storage with 8 gigabytes of RAM, or you could buy the 256 gigs of storage and 12 gigs of RAM. And the CPU in this thing is a Snapdragon 7S Gen 4, which is a slightly different one than last year's 3A phone. And one of the bigger things that they've upgraded from last year is the type of glass on the front. Last year it was called Panda Glass, and this year they've gone to a Corning Gorilla Glass, which is a bit more standard in the phone space. But we're gonna power this up, and we're gonna see exactly what Nothing has to offer. Maybe they have something. Sorry. Apparently this phone wasn't fully set up by Labs. I have to switch to the white Nothing phone. That's fine. Alrighty, and we are in. Brightness test. That is very bright. My God. I mean, that is one of their claims that they are very proudly boasting on this display. I'm gonna turn it back down so you guys can actually see anything. But they claimed a peak brightness of 4,500 nits. We'll get into that a little bit later. They also said that their outdoor brightness is about 1,600 nits and their typical brightness is 800 nits. Again, we'll have those results a little bit later because Nothing has always boasted that their absolute peak brightness is crazy. Last year's 3A was 3,000 nits. To go from 3,000 to 4,500 is crazy if they hit it. As for the rest of the screen specs, it is a 6.78 inch screen with a resolution of 1224 by 2720, which is actually a pretty high PPI / resolution display we've seen. It's not quite the highest we have. I know the S26 Ultra was like a 1440p screen. That was also like 3 times the price of this, so this is pretty good for this price. As for our refresh rate, it can go down to 30 hertz and up to 120. Typically that'll be dynamic for maybe a type of game you're playing, or if it's in like a low power setting, you can clock all the way down to 30 hertz. Which again, for a budget entry phone, if you're wanting 120 hertz, I think that's fantastic. I had kind of a hot take with my 17E unboxing where I said 120 on budget seems weird, but there are options out there for people who want it. But with how bright it was, we need to watch a YouTube video first. That's the first thing we're gonna do, and I need to connect to the internet. At full brightness, it looks really good for the price of the phone, but you can tell this is a budget display. It's an LTPS flexible AMOLED compared to their last year's just flexible AMOLED, but it looks really dark. It looks good quality, but again, I feel like if you wanted an actual good brightness, you have to crank that brightness up. And then you're like, yeah, this is a good looking screen. But again, like I said, I would worry about battery life. I guess while I was bringing up the brightness about that video, I should go over our labs results for brightness. So while we didn't hit their peak brightness claim of the 4,500 nits, we did get specific instructions from Nothing about how to hit it, and we still couldn't hit it. We have been able to hit peak brightness on like past Nothing phones, but it's always been an insanely specific test. Realistically, it's definitely a marketing push thing to just say that they can hit this brightness versus a real world scenario you'd probably be interacting with. But what you will be interacting with though is this segue to our sponsor.
PC building has never been the cheapest hobby, but with the way things are going right now and the price of parts, it's only gotten worse. So it helps to have a case that can do everything you might need while still being budget conscious. Like Corsair's 3200D RS. It's built for optimized airflow with 9 fan mounts and AIO radiator options on both the top and front of the case. It even comes with 3 pre-installed RS120 fans. There's up to 400 millimeters of GPU clearance or 375 millimeters with fans installed. And it has a built-in anti-sag arm to support even the heftiest of GPUs. You can learn more and grab your Corsair 3200D RS with our link in the description.
Can you hear this in the mic? Yeah, I'm not clicking it.
Wait, what?
I'm rubbing my finger over the button. It's like the tolerance is loose on the button. I like brushed my finger over it and I thought I clicked it because I heard it. And you guys can hear it too. I'm not clicking the button. I don't know if it's the same on the other ones. Yeah. It's such a minor detail, but like, caught me off guard. That's for sure. Let's listen to Crab Rave. Enough about the buttons. Volume. We gotta start with the max. That's what I usually start with. Those are pretty poor. My initial impression was like not good when I heard that first little ramp up in the music. They're a lot quieter than other phones too. It's not as loud as I've heard on some other phones, but the quality was much worse as well. It's this part, that snare there. That snare is really bad. It sounds like sand. Let me turn the volume down. Sometimes by going like 50% volume or something, you can kind of get rid of those weird crisps or sand sounds, but the snare sounds a lot better now at 50% volume. It sounds a lot better at 50% volume. I will say it's still quieter than some other phones we've tested at 50% volume. So I don't know, maybe it's not much of like a showing friends videos phone, right? You're not gonna be like, hey, everyone listen to this. One thing you might be doing with your friends though, taking lots of photos. So let's take some quick photos here. As for the camera specs themselves, we've got a couple cameras on the back here. The main one is a 50 megapixel Samsung sensor. The periscope camera is also a 50 megapixel Samsung sensor. And then the last ultra wide camera is an 8 megapixel Samsung sensor. And as for the front facing selfie cam, it is a 32 megapixel, also Samsung sensor. Starting to notice a pattern here. That selfie camera might be controversial to you, depending on if you like the hole punch style look or a whole notch bar or whatever, but basically every camera has some sort of hole punch now. Can't really complain too much. Let's take a photo of Lucky. I always like taking a photo of Lucky. Okay, so the first photo we took was on a 1X. And if I try to zoom in here, you know what? The post-processing on this is a lot better than I thought. When I was taking the initial photo, I was looking at it like, ooh, it doesn't look very good through like the preview, but now that I'm actually in the photo itself, it looks a lot better than I thought. So whatever post-processing magic they're doing on this photo is actually doing some work here. 2X, same thing. Yeah, zooming quite in. Again, once you start getting this close, you can definitely see some of the issues, especially even some of the lines in like the short circuit style tiles we have. And as for as for our ultra wide, holy cow, bro turned his FOV to like 80 in Minecraft. We gotta take a selfie. Cheese. That's a pretty good selfie camera. I'm not saying the subject is that good, but like, man, my hair is crazy today and it's done a pretty good job at being able to highlight individual hairs and whatever processing it's doing to these dead eyes. I feel like one thing I haven't done in a while is take a video on one of these phones. The default's to 1080p 30. We can do 1080p 60 or 4K 30. We'll take a quick video of Lucky. Oh wow, hi Lucky. Look how cute you are. Is it stuttering? I can't tell if it's stuttering just because of the zoom or if it's actually stuttering. I'm gonna try doing one more video where I don't zoom in and we'll see if that stuttering is still there.
Oh, the light comes on in the back, a red recording light.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, you got a little red recording light that it's recording. Anyways, I've been recording a long time now. We should see if it looks stuttery. It's got pretty good stabilization. That's not bad. I've seen worse stabilization on phones. The stuttering that I was experiencing when I was zooming in on that first video appeared to only be on the zoom in. It's fine. We're pretty spoiled. Like, listen, I'm trying to take a new attitude with tech. I'm trying not to buy into the hype of the overexpensive. I can't really say that about a Pro Max, but you know what I mean? I'm trying to like look at these entry level and these budget phones and find the highlights. This is gonna be good enough for like 95% of people out there. We're gonna try the essential button here. I think by default, yep, it just took a screenshot, which is kind of cool. You can add a note or whatever, but can we change that if I hold it? Oh, now I'm recording. I think I just took a voice memo. Maybe I have to go into the settings to change it. I wanna make sure that I can actually like configure it to do a bunch of different stuff. I would probably just use it as a dedicated screenshot button. I don't think I'd do anything else with this, but it looks like it's got its set limits on what it's going to do. Oh, oh my gosh, we should talk about the light more on the back. Duh, I don't care about the frickin' essential button. Glyph interface, ringtones. Oh yes, so you can actually bind it to have like different ringtones, make it light up in different ways. Combining that with having different contacts that you could bind different ringtones to, you could reach new peak laziness level, okay? Phone on the counter, you just see what light is kind of going, what pattern, you're like, ah, that's the old ball and chain, I can ignore it, right? Versus, oh, that's the old ball and chain, I can ignore it. Sorry. Oh, there you go, so there's an example. That's like one of the ringtone examples that you can have. Let's try a different one. There's ripple. It's a fun gimmicky feature, right? It's not something I think that is like really practical, but I think it's cool. One of the other practical things that they have about the Glyph though, is it can be used as kind of a countdown timer for a photo. So let's say you have it set up on a tripod, whatever, you hit the go, you run to get into place, you can see the little bar go, doo, 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 and then take the photo. So you kind of have a more accurate time of it. That's kind of cool. You can have certain notifications, have it light up, volume indicate, apparently. Oh yeah, look at that. I can adjust the volume and you can see the light go up and down. All right, let's plug it in. Let's see if it like does charging. No, I can't see my charge level? Nothing. Thought nothing would go wrong today.
Ha! Woo!
You can have it bound to Uber so you can see how far your Uber is? Okay.
How is there an Uber integration and not a charging? There has to be a charging.
Actually, that's a good point. Yeah, the 3 Glyph progress apps that they show are Zomato, Uber, and Calendar. Where the hell is charging? Nothing. We should go over the battery specs right now, I guess, while it's charging. It is a 5,080 milliamp hour battery for the entire world, except for India. You get a 5,400 milliamp hour battery. Not sure why you guys get a bigger battery, and we don't. Features 50-watt fast charging, and it claims that it will do a 100% charge from 0 in 64 minutes and 50% in about 22 minutes. Our labs results for that 100% charge were about 2 minutes slower, which, I don't know, that's within variance in my opinion, but it is a little bit slower. And the entire battery duration was 17 hours and 14 minutes, which is actually a pretty big improvement over last year's 3A. It's, again, a lot lower than we've seen in some other phones. I think recently we did the S26 Ultra, and that one lasted like almost a whole day, if I'm not mistaken, but those are 2 different classes of phones. I shouldn't even be comparing them, right? As for that 50-watt charging claim they had, it did hit it, but for like 0.1 of a second. It basically went right back down to 40 watts after that and was able to kind of maintain that charge until, you know, as it got more and more full, it kept dropping down lower and lower. But it seemed like they kind of just hit that 50 watt and they're like, woo, we got it. We hit it, boys, 50 watt charging. Again, I don't know if it was down to our charger or what it may have been, but we didn't quite hit their claim. So for an entry level or budget phone, it feels like you're getting some pretty cool premium features like that 120 hertz screen, or just in general, the size of the screen is pretty nice. It's a lot bigger than some of the other budget phones. But the only one that's gonna be able to determine if it's budget enough is you, if you think the price is acceptable. The base configuration, which we have here, is $470 US, with the top config being 540-ish, it's 536. So it's a bit cheaper than the entry-level iPhone we looked at earlier, but it's a bit more expensive than something like Samsung's A56 or Google's 10A. I've actually seen the Google Pixel 10A as cheap as like $270 when it was on sale, which I think a lot of things are gonna struggle to compete with that price. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are down below, and hey, maybe which color you prefer. If you guys enjoyed this video, go check out the iPhone 17e, which I unboxed a couple weeks ago. That was also a entry-level or budget phone, but it was probably on the more expensive side.